Hey everyone, welcome back. So today, we're talking about something that's already starting to ripple through the economy and could affect your daily life more than you might think. President Trump just signed a major new tariff policy that puts a 10% tax on nearly every imported product coming into the United States. And for countries he sees as the worst offenders, the rates are even higher. It's the biggest change in U.S. trade policy we've seen in nearly a century. And it's raising a lot of questions. Like, how is this going to affect the price of the car you want to buy, or even the cost of your next grocery run? And here's something a lot of people don't know yet. These tariffs aren't just about goods coming from China. They'll hit everything from cars made in Japan to beer cans made with aluminum from Canada. Even countries that are usually on good terms with the US, like the European Union and India, are getting hit with new trade penalties. And the effects could trickle down into a lot of areas of your life, from what you pay at the store to how stable your job is if you work in industries that depend on international trade. This is something that could impact all of us, not just in how much we spend, but how we understand the way our economy connects with the world. So stay tuned, because understanding what's really happening here might help you make smarter financial choices in the months ahead. And hey, if you find this kind of content helpful and you're trying to make sense of today's economy without the noise, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'll be here each week with honest, easy to understand explanations that help you feel a little more in control of your finances. Now, let's explore further. One of the biggest changes that came out of this new tariff plan is the flat 10% tax on almost everything imported into the US. That means whether it's a smartphone, a piece of clothing, or even a kitchen appliance, if it's made outside the US, it's going to cost more. And while that might not seem like a lot at first glance, over time, those costs add up. So, imagine you're replacing a refrigerator or getting a new washer and dryer. These are the kinds of purchases where an extra few $100s in price might really hit hard. And it's not just luxury items either. Everyday essentials, like groceries packaged in aluminum cans or electronics with foreign-made parts, will feel the pressure too. Even something like your favorite brand of cereal, if it uses imported grains or packaging, could quietly go up in price. And next, there's the second layer of tariffs, the ones that target specific countries. Here's where it gets a little more complicated. Countries that charge the US higher tariffs on our exports are now going to be hit with what's called reciprocal tariffs. Basically, if they're charging us 40% on US goods, we'll charge them 20%. So, Cambodia is getting hit with a 49% tariff, while places like China and the EU are facing tariffs that range from 20 to 34%. What does this mean for you? Well, if you regularly buy products that are made in Europe or Asia, like clothing brands from Italy, tech from Korea, or even cars from Japan, you're going to see those prices jump. The administration says this is about fairness, that the US has been giving better deals to other countries than they've given us, and this is the way to reset that balance. But here's the thing. While the goal is to encourage companies to manufacture more here in the US, the short-term effect is that companies are going to pay more to bring in their goods, and they'll likely pass that cost on to you, the consumer. And speaking of cars, let's talk about that 25% tariff on foreign-made automobiles. That's a big one. If you've been eyeing a Lexus, a BMW, or even a Volkswagen, you might want to check those prices again. According to some early numbers, foreign car prices could rise by as much as $8,000 to $20,000, depending on the model. Now, you might think, all right, I'll just buy an American car instead. But it's not quite that simple. A lot of American-branded vehicles still rely on foreign parts. So even if it's made here, the costs to build it are going up. SUVs like the Chevy Suburban or Cadillac Escalade, for example, could end up $10,000 to $12,000 more expensive. And if you're in the market for an electric vehicle, those could take the steepest hit because they use a lot of imported components. Also, we're already starting to see ripple effects in financial markets. After the announcement, the stock market took a dive, especially tech stocks. Investors were spooked, and many started moving their money into gold, which surged past $3,200 an ounce, a record high. That might not mean much day to day for most people, but it shows the level of uncertainty this policy is creating. When investors get nervous, that usually means higher borrowing costs more market volatility, and even job slowdowns in some sectors. Now, here's where it starts to get even more personal: our everyday shopping. If you're buying beer, soda, or canned food, those aluminum cans are about to cost more. And it's not just beverages. A lot of packaging for products we see on store shelves every day use aluminum or imported materials. If you notice your grocery bill creeping up recently, this could make it worse. And don't forget produce. Mexico is a huge supplier of avocados and fresh vegetables. Exporters there have already started halting shipments because they're unsure about how the new tariffs and border delays will affect them. That means we're probably going to see fewer avocados and higher prices, especially at restaurants and grocery stores. So, tacos and guacamole nights might start costing a bit more than usual. So then, what's the political response? Well, it's a mixed bag. Supporters of the policy say it's about time we stood up to unfair trade practices. They argue that this will strengthen American industries and bring jobs back. But critics? They're calling this a massive tax hike on the middle class. Some even say it could cause a recession, especially if other countries retaliate. Senators from both sides of the aisle are already working on trying to limit the president's power to impose these kinds of tariffs using emergency authority. There's a growing sense that this could spiral into a full-blown trade war if things don't cool down. Internationally, things are heating up too. The European Union is already talking about counter tariffs, and they're not just focusing on steel or cars. They're looking at tech services and financial products, areas where the US makes a lot of money. That means companies like Apple, Google, and Meta could be targeted next. And if they get hit, those impacts might show up in your app subscriptions, cloud storage fees, or even service availability. Even Canada and Mexico, who are technically exempt for now, aren't sitting back. They're watching this closely and considering their own options in case the situation escalates. So even though you might not feel the full impact yet, the ground is definitely shifting under the global economy. Let's take a moment to talk about what tariffs really are and why they matter. A tariff is basically a tax on imports. The idea is to make foreign products more expensive so that people buy more American-made goods. Sounds simple, right? But the reality is a bit more complicated. Because we live in a global economy, many of the things we buy aren't made entirely in one place. They're the result of parts and labor from multiple countries. So when you tax an imported part, you also raise the cost of the final product, even if it's mostly assembled here in the US. That's why critics of this policy are saying it might hurt American businesses just as much as it hurts foreign ones. Companies might try to absorb the cost at first, but eventually they pass it on to you. Now, there's also some confusion about how this will help reduce the deficit or lead to tax cuts. The administration is saying that the tariffs will raise $6 trillion over 10 years. But here's the catch. If the tariffs work so well that imports shrink dramatically, then the government won't collect that money because there's nothing left to tax. It's kind of a catch-22. You can't reduce imports and also collect tons of revenue from those imports at the same time. That's one of the contradictions people are pointing out. And besides, even if companies bring their operations back to the US, it's not an overnight change. Setting up factories, hiring workers, and building supply chains here takes years and billions of dollars. Plus, wages are higher in the US, so products made here could still end up costing more. You see, this policy touches everything from the economy to politics, even down to the choices you make as a shopper. Whether you're buying a phone, a car, or just a six-pack of soda, these new tariffs could change how much you pay. So what can you do right now? First, it helps to be aware. If you've got a big purchase coming up, especially something like a car or a major appliance, check prices now and see if it makes sense to act sooner rather than later. Also, consider buying American-made products when you can, but don't assume they're always cheaper. It's worth doing a little homework. And maybe think about tracking your spending more closely over the next few months. If prices start creeping up, you want to know where your money's going so you can adjust. Simple budgeting tools or apps can help with that. Lastly, stay informed. Policies like these can change quickly, and being aware of what's going on can help you make better decisions for yourself and your family. If you found this breakdown helpful, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. How are these new tariffs affecting you? Are you changing any of your shopping habits or holding off on any big purchases? And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next update. I'll keep following this story and others that affect your wallet. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Take care of yourself, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.